Ashok Lavasa, why don't you tell us your definition of LPF? Do you believe that the Election Commission in 2024 is in a position to ensure a level playing field? An honest answer from all of you, starting with you, Mr. Lavasa.
Thank you very much, Rajdeep, for having me on your show. I think that is the responsibility of the regulator, in this case, the Election Commission, because of the inherent differences among the contestants. The responsibility of ensuring that the field is more or less level. I won't say completely level, because I think EC also has its own limitations, but to the extent that it can, it is its responsibility to ensure that no one is at a position of undue advantage.
No, but that's a first principle, sir. Do you believe that in this election, because particularly the BJP is such a dominant party at the moment, they have an unfair advantage as the opposition is alleging?
No, I think it's not a question of the current situation. It is the question of the ruling party always perceived to be in a position of advantage. And that is why the system of the model code of conduct, where all parties agree that there will be a certain minimum decent behavior, there will be some restraint observed by everybody, including the party in power and the bureaucracy.
Sir, the reason I'm asking you this, and before I go to my other panelists, I want clarity on this. You were there in 2019 and you had passed a dissent note, particularly because there were complaints about certain speeches made by the Prime Minister and Home Minister Amit Shah. And you had at that time passed a dissent note saying that there should be, these complaints should be registered, notices should be sent to them. Your opinion was not even registered. Eventually you left the EC. I'm trying to understand, do you believe that you were in a way targeted? Do you believe that can the EC speak truth to power? When I say power, I mean those at the very top.
I don't think the precedent that you cited has any bearing on the current functioning of the EC. And I have no reason to disbelieve that it will not be up to the task of maintaining a level playing field.
But were you able to maintain a level playing field in 2019 in your view, when a dissent note is not recorded?
No, that's all right. That's a decision of the commission. There is a certain method prescribed for the commission to take a decision, and the majority view prevailed.
Can I take that to you now, Mr. Gopalswamy? Do you believe that we have a level playing field, Mr. Gopalswamy, as we head into this big election? Or do you believe that the BJP has an advantage, or is the opposition protesting unfairly?
Look, I mean, Mr. Lavasa very rightly pointed out that the model code of conduct originated because every party felt, including the ruling party. You know, it started in Kerala in 1960. Including the ruling party, everybody agreed that there is a need for a level playing field being created because of the perception that the party in power has a better advantage. That is how it started. Therefore, that becomes the very bedrock of the entire operations of the EC. So, if I mean, there are certain things on which so far things have been regulated, worked, and seen. But new instances, new situations will arise. As and when they arise, it is for the EC to judge whether you need to extend their, their writ or jurisdiction to cover a new issue. I mean, this happens every election. Something new comes up, and I have no doubt in my mind that the election commissioners at the relevant point of time have the wherewithal to decide on this issue and take appropriate action on that.
No, but do you believe, sir, with due regard? No, sir, suppose it involves the Prime Minister of the country or a senior minister, would the EC act with the same fairness as they would act with an opposition leader, especially when there are appeals to religion, when there are allegations of hate speech?
Yeah, I will rephrase it. Yes. Not the Prime Minister, one of the contestants. He is also one of the contestants. Prime Minister is secondary now, because in the election scenario, Prime Minister or any minister, for that matter, anybody, is a contestant. That's where the matter should be decided upon, and that's how the Election Commission has been doing it. And in the event, you quoted the instance of Lavasa, and he rightly answered, saying that there was a decision by majority. After all, when the three people and two people decide one way, one person decides in a different way, it is obvious that the majority decision will be the one which the EC, which the Election Commission as a whole will decide as the final decision in that particular matter. So I for one do not believe that the election commissioners today are not in a position to ensure that level playing field will be brought into actual action.
So you're telling me that the EC does see the Prime Minister or a senior leader as just another contestant at a time like this?
Exactly,
there is no added pressure. There's no added pressure.
No, there shouldn't be, there wouldn't be, and at least for speaking for myself, I would say it was not there.
Okay. Let me come, Mr. Rawat, to one element which many are saying could skew this level playing field. I'll come to two or three of them, but one is just the schedule. We actually have a much longer schedule now than what we used to have in the past. It seems to be getting longer, and the opposition is raising the question that this favors the party which has more access to money, to resources. Why should a state like Maharashtra, for example, have a 5-phase poll, even as Tamil Nadu has 1 phase? These are questions being raised, that even the schedule is designed to suit a particular party.
Actually, I don't think so, because Tamil Nadu had always a single phase poll because of the ground conditions and availability of the central paramilitary forces.
Yes.
So Election Commission formulates a schedule based on the availability of paramilitary forces.
But Maharashtra usually had only 2 or 3 phases, sir.
Possible time.
Sir, Maharashtra only had 2 or 3 phases. It's gone to 5. Maharashtra doesn't have a history. Maharashtra had 2 or 3 phases maximum. It's gone to 5. It doesn't have a history of political violence. The sense is that the schedule gets elongated so that the party which has the maximum resources can use them. That the Prime Minister can campaign relentlessly across the country, while the opposition is more restricted because they have restricted resources. Do you go along with that or not?
Actually, politics is always finding an argument in support of their thinking, and therefore I won't comment on that. But availability of paramilitary forces, their movement from one phase to other phase, all these things dictate Election Commission to formulate phases. Now, Maharashtra may not have had 5 phases, but this time the availability of forces around Maharashtra, which can go to the other areas of Maharashtra, was maybe such that it dictated that yes, you should have 5 phases. So I don't think Election Commission had any such thing in mind to facilitate the ruling party.
Let's come to a critical question which is now being raised, which is can there be control over enforcement agencies once the model code of conduct comes into being? Mr. Lavasa, DGPs are transferred, senior police officers are transferred by EC, but the central agencies, be it the CBI, ED, they remain untouched. Do you believe they need to be looked at? Should the EC have superintendent's power under Article 324 over central agencies as well, ensure that they don't misuse their power by arresting or targeting opposition leaders during this period?
I think, Rajdeep, the question that you raised, it can be looked at in 2 different ways. One is whether the EC should deal with complaints regarding excesses committed by any enforcement agency, and the other is whether there should be a structural arrangement. So I think both these questions need to be looked at differently. The way the Model Code of Conduct has been designed, it does not envisage that the law enforcement agencies or the courts for that matter, that their routine functioning should be restricted by the Election Commission during the process of election. However, there could be complaints. And I think the way EC functions is that it responds to all the complaints by carefully examining whether the complaint is legitimate, whether the grievance which has been placed before the EC merits an intervention by the EC. So it's a question of determining whether any enforcement agency has acted in a manner which violates the spirit of free and fair election. So I would say that every incident or every complaint has to be gone into by the EC. The other is whether it should be structurally embedded in the model code of conduct that the superintendents in control of all the agencies should be with the EC during the election process. I think I am not in favor of that because that might make the situation very untenable and the EC will unnecessarily lose focus. Rather than focus on conducting the elections, it might just get mired in controversies about, all kinds of complaints being put at the EC's door. That having said,
no, but you're saying in principle, if there is a feeling that the ED, for example, has targeted a particular individual, in this case, Arvin Kejriwal arrested just before an election, Hemant Soren, Jharkhand Chief Minister arrested, can the EC say, look, we want a full report on it, but do you believe they can actually act against the ED, call for restraining the Enforcement Directorate, or that would be stretching their powers?
This is exactly what I am saying, that if the EC does come to the conclusion that there is an excess committed, and that too which will cause the contesting party or the candidate, it hampers their free participation, then certainly EC can find ways to discuss with the agency and see how that process can be regulated in a way that no party is put to an unfair disadvantage.
Okay, let me take that to Mr. Gopalsamy, your view on that. Do you believe that the Election Commission can actually supervise some of these central agencies? You've seen IT notices being sent to the principal opposition party. That has led to some element of disquiet. Can the EC step in and oversee this process, or do you believe that's stretching their powers?
Course, no, in the normal course, no. In fact, the EC's powers extend only to those agencies which are directly involved in the election. Okay. For instance, if there is a police officer who is involved in the election process, yes. But if the police officer is doing something else, it has nothing to do with the election, he does not come under the purview of the EC. That's a normal course. But there are circumstances, there will be new issues coming up. If in case a matter is brought to the EC that this is actually misusing the powers of the government in office, it can look into it in the sense that whether, say for instance, you quoted 2 instances.
Yes.
And those instances, there were criminal cases filed and the investigation has been going on for a long time. Therefore, what is the time? Merely on the basis of the fact that if the arrest came at a particular point of time, you can't say that it is interfering in the electoral duties. In that case, every person who, either there should be a blanket ban saying that don't touch any politician. If you don't touch any politician, don't touch anybody at all. So I can become a contestant and, I'm prevented from being arrested even if my crime is a huge crime. I mean, this is untenable kind of argument. Okay. Therefore, my point is, in case there is a particular issue regarding misuse of a certain agency, the EC can look into it, and if it gets satisfied, yes, it should not. There is some issue. They can always, bring it to the government, saying that look, we are of the opinion that this is transgression of the level playing field, and the model code of conduct is to ensure level playing field, and therefore restrain your agencies from doing this. So that is the ultimate final thing. I don't think the EC is constrained on doing it, but then before getting into it, the EC has to examine it properly, satisfy itself that this is a valid case or not a valid case.
Yeah, Mr. Rawat, what's your view? Arvind Kejriwal gets arrested once the model code of conduct has come into being. Do you believe that this is a case that the EC could look at, or should the EC stay away? Because as Mr. Gopalsamy just said, this is an investigation that has been ongoing. It doesn't matter whether the model code of conduct is in place or not?
Actually, I perfectly agree with what my former colleague Mr. Ashok Lavasa said and what Mr. Arvin Gopalaswamy said. Because EC has a constraint also. These things cut both ways. And if EC starts doing the structural vigilance on all these things, then it will really lose focus on main objective of conducting free, fair and credible election. So, if there is a complaint from Mr. Kejriwal to Election Commission that something unfair is being done to him, then EC should get into it, find out, examine, and what has been done in the past, what is the history. So, all those things can be examined by EC and then they can take whatever action is considered fit in that particular case.
But then, Mr. Lavasa, why is this perception growing that over time the EC now simply does what the government of the day wants it to do? This is what the opposition claims. The government, of course, says that it wasn't very different when the other side was in power. The perception is growing that the EC is not as neutral and effective an umpire as it should be. There is no fear of the EC as was there in the time of session, and now it is alleged to be partisan, does what the government wants it to do, whether it be schedules or not sending notices to those responsible for hate speech or appeals to religion, or indeed IT notices or ED cases. Do you agree with that the EC has been less effective now than it was, say, during the time of Mr. Session?
I think, Rajdeep, times have changed, circumstances have changed, the players have changed. But as far as perception is concerned, see, to the extent that any regulator regulates people or performs a judicial or a quasi-judicial function, half the people who don't get what they think is justice will always remain dissatisfied. So I don't know whether it is a priority for the EC to manage perceptions. I don't think that is the job of the Election Commission. They have a job to do. They have to conduct free and fair elections. And I think they should focus on that.
But should there be greater fear of the EC? I mean, there's this feeling that when Mr. Session was there, politicians were afraid of Mr. Session. Is that fear factor gone? And should it be there in the first instance?
No, that you should ask the politicians whether they are scared of the EC or not. But what I would say is that, see, EC is like an empire which has to manage an event like an elections and manage the process as per the laid down rules. But it is also in an unenviable position that it has been given extraordinary authority, perhaps the sole authority to conduct and provide superintendence over the elections. And in that process, it has extraordinary authority to invoke its powers given by the Constitution to intervene when it thinks the situation so calls for. So it is both an empire which is governed by regulations which have been framed, as well as it has the authority to exercise extraordinary jurisdiction. And that is what I think gives rise to a lot of expectations that people have, that here is a superman who must intervene and control all kinds of situations. Sorry.
Yeah, can I come to one more crucial issue, which is being raised by opposition parties and indeed activists, which is VVPATs, the verified voter trail, paper trail. There are those who are saying, and the Supreme Court has sent a notice only on Monday saying to the EC saying that should there be 100% coverage of VVPATs, because there are those who have a question mark over EVMs. Mr. Gopalaswamy, as someone who was part of the EC when EVMs started spreading across the country, do you believe there is a need now for VVPATs also to be present at every polling booth? Every vote can be had a verified paper trail?
It is. Rajiv, the VVPAT is present in every polling station.
Yes, but to use every vote, Should every vote have a verified paper trail?
VVPAT 100% counting of 100%. So I am coming to your point. 100% counting of VVPAT is unnecessary. 5% polling stations in each of the assembly constituencies is more than sufficient. One. Secondly, please look at the facts. 20,652 comparisons were made during the 2019 election. You see, there are 543 constituencies, average of 6 to 7 assembly constituencies per parliamentary constituency, multiplied by 6 or 7, and 5 in each of the assembly constituencies. You will get around 20,652 actually made. It is available in the website. There was no dissonance at all.
Okay.
Then to say that we should do 100% checking, why not go back to the older era of ballot papers, abandon all the EVMs and get lost? But I can't understand this logic at all every time which is coming up, and I am really amazed at this point being repeatedly raised by some people before the Supreme Court time and time again.
Can I get you, Mr. Lavasa, on that? Because you've also seen these arguments when you were in the EC. Make sure 100% counting of the verified paper trail. Do you believe that's necessary to restore confidence, credibility to those naysayers who have questions over the EVMs?
You see, to the extent that VVPAT have been used not only in the 2019 general elections, but even thereafter, all the elections that have taken place, they have the VVPAT. There is an arrangement by which there is a cross-verification done. As Mr. Gopalaswamy said, that so far there have been no discrepancies that have been pointed out. But the point is that whether it should be 1 or 5, or there can be any other system of picking up anything, any specific EVM which has been pointed out by the candidates who are losing, as Mr. Qureshi has been suggesting always, that ask the runners-up or the losing candidate to pick up any EVM and say that, okay, I want this to be verified. That would be an additional measure. So if people are not satisfied, there can be additional ways of talking to them and implementing measures which build greater faith. I'm not saying that it will be possible to satisfy 100% everyone all the time, but I'm sure that EC is competent, imaginative enough to come up with measures which will build greater confidence.
I want to ask all of you, therefore, in conclusion, about an issue which seems to trouble many people, which is the brazen use of money power. As the electoral bonds issue has shown, and many believe electoral bonds are only the tip of what political parties actually accumulate to spend on elections. Much of it is in cash. O.P. Rawatji, do you see any change? Do you see any constraint at all? Can the Election Commission, which has what, 95 lakhs is what you can spend on a Lok Sabha constituency, some in Vidhan Sabha 45 lakhs, these numbers just don't make sense. Every politician I speak to admits that they spend, particularly from the major parties, crores for an election. Will that ever change?
Actually, the main reason behind that is that the ceiling on expenditure is only for candidates, not for the political parties. And Election Commission has already suggested to the government that there should be a ceiling on political party expenditure in elections also. So what happens that when political party spends 10 crores in one constituency, so the perception created there is that this 95 lakh ceiling is a hoax, because so much money is flowing in the constituency. So that is one. Second thing is we need to bring in a lot of reforms in campaign finance and expenditure area, because when we see global comparison of elections in democracies, we find that our elections score very high on election commission's independence, election laws, boundaries, delimitation, everything we score very high globally. But only on these two counts, media issues and campaign finance and expenditure issues, we score just the passing marks around 30, 34, which is in our examinations. So there we need to work a lot, and I think Election Commission will do
does,
well
does
to
anyone,
continue that.
Does any one of you, Mr. Gopal Sami, you start, does any one of you have a solution to that? You know, as citizens of this country, as taxpayers of this country, we wonder, if electoral bonds suggest quid pro quos, what of the cash transactions that will go on during this election time? Do you see any solution at all?
That's also, Rajiv, that's also quid pro quo. You know, the cash which is being spent is also quid pro quo. Let me take only one instance. In one assembly elections here, by-election here in Tamil Nadu, instead of the normal 5 or 6, finance, overseeing financial transactions, etc., instead of 5 people, 200 people are appointed just to ensure that money is not passed on under the door, within the newspaper, etc., etc. Still, money was given. You know why? You know how? It was given in a totally different area. If the election was taking place at X area, money was passed on to Y area. How can you? So basically, the issue is, I think the political system has to sit up and take notice. The perception that the politician, once he gets to power, can do anything and get away, which many people do get away with it. As long as that perception remains, and from time to time, from election to election, if you see politicians, their assets and assets going up enormously. I don't think until you control that, it is impossible for you to be able to ask the election commission to ensure that the money power is controlled in the election. 95 lakhs or whatever it is on paper. If I remember right, I think one of the very leading politicians long ago once mentioned the day they got to the parliament. They were sworn in. He said he is supposed to have said that we are all entering the parliament after uttering a big lie. That big lie was that I have my campaign expenditure is within the limits prescribed. Everybody understands it, but there is no solution until the system ensures that black money, if it is caught, unless you can do away with black money, you can do away with the transactions of this kind, it will never end.
I want to take that to you, Mr. Lavasa. Do you have a solution? Because the EC has been relatively successful in controlling muscle power. I remember when I started covering elections, there was booth capturing in some parts of this country. That seems to have reduced. Violence generally seems to have reduced, but money power has risen exponentially. Some say it's just gone underground. Is there a solution, sir?
So again, Rajdeep, I think the way we need to look at this is that Election Commission has a certain remit, and whatever is possible within the formal system, some measures have been taken. They always, and let me tell you that this is a cause of great concern for all those who have been in the Election Commission, that how do you make an effective arrangement by which you can control this? But as far as the formal system is concerned, a lot of things have been done. And I agree that there are deficiencies in that also. For example, it's very ironical that even though people complain that the expenditure limit per candidate is less, but when you find that the returns that they have filed, there was a time when not more than half the people would say that their expenditure is not even 50% of the limit. So it's very strange that on the one hand, the formal limit which has been prescribed, that is not even reached by more than half the people. And still people complain of lower limits. The second thing is that I think this whole system of scrutinizing the accounts submitted for the expenditure, it has to be given a greater thrust and priority after the elections, because all those who don't make it or don't win, I think their accounts become very secondary as far as the Election Commission's ability to scrutinize them is concerned. The other thing is that what Mr. Rawat said, that there has to be a ceiling on the expenditure incurred by the political parties. But again, these are all formal arrangements. We are not even talking, and I don't know how Election Commission is competent to control the flow of black money in the elections. It takes all the measures which it can with the help of government agencies. But still, you have reports where people do spend a lot of money in elections and they openly admit, but nobody is able to nail it. So my point is that I think we should all insist and expect that all political parties, they must come out with their plan of curbing this in their manifestos. Because electoral reforms, I don't see find prime place in any election manifesto. But if elections funding has to be cleaned up, it should be given top priority by those who aspire to be the lawmakers of this country.
Can I come to two other issues? One is very close to the bone, Mr. Lavasa, and I'll get all of you on this, which is media power. In America, it's very clear that in prime time, for example, political parties will be allotted times, and you will never have one party dominating the media landscape. There are two main parties, the Democrats and Republicans, and you tend to try and give them equal time. In India, we find that whoever is the ruling party, in this case the BJP particularly, and the Prime Minister gets dominant time across the media, and that many believe skews the entire electoral process if one person, one party gets all the media time. Do you believe, Mr. Lavasa, that is something the EC should look at? In the past, the EC looked at paid news. Should they now be looking at misuse of media power?
I think the way a system was evolved to allot time on government-controlled media earlier, there has to be a discussion to see how EC can similarly have an arrangement by which equitable timing is allotted, minimum time is allotted to all contestants and all political parties on the formal television channels. I don't see that control being easily exercised over the social media. So that poses a different challenge altogether.
No, because Mr. Gopal Samy, you want to step in? Do you believe that the media itself, can you play, can you ensure, particularly in this age of social media, can anyone really control the media? Is it possible, or each political party will exploit the media power?
I will separate into two parts. One is the TV and journalist media, and the other one is about the social media. Social media is uncontrollable. You can't exercise much control, excepting that if the EC is successful in at least ensuring deep fakes are prevented, it's good enough. I mean, that's all that, even if that is done, it's better. But as far as the other media is concerned, EC should not get into it at all. Let me ask this question to you, Rajiv, and others. Where is your responsibility? You people should get together and ensure that there is a level playing field. Why should everything be thrown at the EC's head?
Sir, you are the umpire. Sir, you are the umpires. Sir, you are the umpires. If you showed us a red card,
you say, look,
can you show us a red card?
Then the umpire is not expected to do, start pulling the ear of every person around. No, that's not the job at all. What is the responsibility? You people claim that you are bringing the news, proper news to all the sections of the population. What is your responsibility? Okay. You should have the responsibility to ensure that all of you get together and decide that there will be a fixed time allotted or whatever it is. No over indulgence to one party or one person. That is for you to decide.
Okay,
why
good
should
point.
everything be done by the Election Commission?
Okay, fair point that we need to look inwards. Mr. Rawat, do you have a view? Do you believe that the media should be reined in at election time, that the EC should be watching over how much time the media covers whose rally?
Actually, Election Commission is watching. They have electronic media monitoring committee, and they are watching 24 hours during the campaign period. So all that is already available. However, for location of time on government-controlled media and social media issues, I agree totally to Mr. Gopalaswamy and Mr. Ashok Lavasa that whatever is being done, I think Election Commission has very little space to move there.
You know, but the interesting aspect, Mr. Lavasa, is because you have a staggered election campaign, just think about it. There is voting going on in Baramati, but maybe a leader is in the neighboring constituency of Pune and his or her rally is going live at that moment. I mean, you all have this so-called dark period. Last 48 hours you cannot campaign, but campaigning is going on even as voting takes place. Is there any control on that, or that's just an accepted fact now that everyone will campaign till the last moment like they do in the United States?
Yeah, I think the point that you raised is a serious issue. And I don't know whether technically it is possible to regulate things in a way that you black out certain areas during the election period. I don't know if it is even desirable. I would rather political leaders that after all, if everybody is interested in fair play, then everybody has to contribute in playing fair. You cannot expect the referee to run around every nook and corner and see that he is the one or she is the one responsible for covering all the gaps.
Okay. So you're saying the onus is on the politicians. Am I correct? The politicians should recognize that there is a rule in place. Don't abuse the rule. Am I correct?
What I'm saying is that players play to win the game. They don't play to dare the referee. So I think if there is a general understanding that this is a restraint we have to observe, then that is a restraint you have to observe.
The fact though is that it has moved Mr. Lavasa to a winner takes all. The worry is that because politics is now so competitive that winner takes all, they will politicians do whatever they can to win an election. Sam, dam, danda, bhed. That's where I come to the original point. There is no fear of the EC.
Can I intervene?
Yes, please, Mr. Gopalsamy.
Yeah. You talked about Mr. Session.
Yes.
You don't produce Sessions very often, right?
Yes.
So Session is one, and he was one and only one. Okay. The point is, when Session started doing whatever he did, it was the first time he did that, and he stunned everybody. After that, the political parties, the politicians, would have devised their own ways. So every time, you have to find something innovative to hit at them, then only it can be controlled. But it is not always possible. Okay, within the four corners of EC has to function within the four corners of law. Therefore, within that, whatever innovation they can do.
No, because all you do, sir, with due regard, all you do now is send a notice. You've just seen notices are sent to particular leaders. Do those notices have any deterrent effect?
At Session's time, there's something which was not there, which is being done today. Today, supposing somebody crosses the red line, you not only send a notice and get a reply. After that, if you find that he's crossed the line, you are saying that for the next 2 days you can't campaign. This is something which has never happened before. Now it is happening, which means that EC has found one new innovation by which they are trying to control these things. So that that is a continuous process. The EC will keep on innovating on these issues. But you can't say that nothing is being done. They are trying their best to see within the four corners of law. They can't do anything which immediately, if it is challenged before the court of law, it gets thrown off. No, that is not the way they can do it.
Can I though look at another aspect? As we go across this round table, it's rare to have 3 election commissioners, so I'm doing a last 5 minutes with you all, which is hate speech. It's something which concerns me terribly because I've seen how it's openly appeals made to religion and caste, dog whistles against a particular community. And I come back to you, Mr. Lavasa, because remember in the last election campaign, this became a major issue. Some of the comments made no less by the Prime Minister of the country led to complaints, but the EC didn't act on it. Do you believe the time has come to throw the rule book on any politician, whether it's an opposition politician, whether it's a government politician? If anyone resorts to hate speech or appeals on the grounds of religion, 80-20 politics as it's called, or Shamshan Ghat, Kabristan politics, that the EC will need to act to ensure it stops?
Well, my straightforward response to that, Rajdeep, is that when you are an umpire, you don't give somebody out because of his or her stature. You give somebody out, declare him out because as per the rules, in your perception, it is a violation. And I don't think referees are meant to act to please the players or to please the spectators. They have a job and they have to do a job. And as Mr. Gopalaswamy said, that when it comes to elections, I think all contestants are equal. So you
Sir, are they all, sir, but are they you're saying all contestants are equal, but when the referee sets them off from the starting point, is one side 20 meters ahead of the other or not?
That's what the rule is. Because if you have to run in the outer lane, you are given a head start of 20 meters.
Mr. Rawat, what do you think? Do you believe that the EC can crack down more effectively on appeals to caste and religion?
In fact, EC has been doing a lot on this score, hate speech and appeal for votes on caste, religion, etc. It's only the opposition's allegations which are shaping the perception. And therefore, let EC think on these lines that whatever they are doing, they should look a little bit more for optics as well. I think that will really stand them in good stead.
Mr. Gopalswamy, your sense?
Yeah.
Do we need to do more to curb hate speech that divides communities? You remember Bal Thackeray all those years ago was disqualified eventually by the Supreme Court.
Everything that needs to be done has to be done. There is no exception at all, whosoever it is. Every contestant has to be, whosoever it is, has to be pulled up if he has crossed the red line. There should be no, but it cannot be based on perceptions. That's what I'm trying to say. The EC has a job. It should do the job, and it is doing the job. Only thing is, there cannot be any count. You know, there are 2% on this side, other 2% on that other side. No, that's not the way it should be done. It should be done on the merits of the matter, and not based on mere perception, saying that that person violated and I didn't violate. Why you charged me and he didn't charge? No, all that is immaterial. What the EC has to ensure that the whosoever it is, he is pulled up if the red line is crossed.
Can I ask all of you, you all have all been experienced IAS officers before you all joined the Election Commission. Are you satisfied? And I want honest answers from you, starting with, I know you'll give me an honest answer, Mr. Lavasa. The present system of appointing election commissioners, are you okay with it? Or do you believe you should have had a Chief Justice as part of the selection committee? Otherwise, at the end of the day, the government has a majority, 2 ministers of the government, including the Prime Minister and just the leader of the opposition. Would you like to see a review of that system? Or do you believe that the people who manage our election commissions are officers of integrity?
I think the two things that you said, they are not necessarily complementing each other. That a meritorious person doesn't get selected by the way the committee is composed. But that having said, I think optically it is always good to have a broad-based selection committee so that you have participation of people who are not involved in directly involved in the administration or government, and if they are also party to the selection process, to that extent, I think it lends it more credibility.
Mr. Gopalswamy, do you believe that there should be a review of the way election commissioners are selected?
Let me put it this way. Maybe you can expand the size of the committee, but I am very clear that there should be no induction of anybody from the judiciary for the simple reason that the ultimate arbiter in the whole matter is the judiciary. Now, imagine a situation where somebody from the judiciary is a member and this election goes bad. Will you go and tell the honorable court saying that Mr. Justice so-and-so, you were sitting there, it has backfired. You've done a bad job. Will you do that? I don't think that should be done at all. They should not. The high office of the judiciary should not be brought down to this kind of a thing.
Okay.
You
Mr.
can
Rawat,
broad-face the thing with anybody else.
Mr. Rawat, your view, do you believe that the way of choosing election commissioners should be re-looked at?
Not at all, because in our scheme of things, Parliament, in their own wisdom, whatever law they have enacted as per the direction of Supreme Court and as per the provision in the Constitution, I think our country has to run on that.
Okay, I'm going to ask all of you one last little slightly different kind of question. What's your best moment and worst moment of being election commissioner? Do you remember, Mr. Lavasa, your favorite moment? What's the best thing about being an election commissioner and the most difficult thing of being one?
I think the best moments were when you toured the country, when you met people and saw their enthusiasm in being part of this entire election process, especially people who are disadvantaged. I think those moments are worth remembering. And of course, enforcement of the Model Code of Conduct, I think, is quite a formidable task because it has raised extraordinary expectations on the part of the people.
Okay, Mr. Gopal Sami, your favorite moment and your most difficult moment?
Yeah, the bringing in of the photographs on the electoral roll is my best moment. That is something which we worked on for nearly 1.5 years to put it in operation for the 2009 election. The worst you can say is that, whatever we could do, we did, but I don't think we were ever be able to control the money power or, muscle power is, you rightly mentioned that in certain parts of the country, the muscle power was predominating. That was totally eliminated, but not the money power. That's something which is a great regret.
Okay, let me twist it to you, Mr. Rawat. Are politicians today better behaved, you think, than they were 25, 30 years ago?
Circumstances have changed. Earlier, politicians did not have that kind of contestation. So, depending on the circumstances, today's politicians are doing their bit. They are doing very well. And in earlier times, whatever they were doing according to the circumstances available then. However, I'll also like to say that when we annulled 3 elections,
right,
3 constituencies because of the excessive money distribution, having vitiated the election environs, that was our best moment, and we felt proud that even the judiciary upheld those elections, those decisions.
Mr. Lavasa, therefore, as we go into the 2024 elections, it starts in 2 weeks' time. Should we all be satisfied that Indian electoral democracy, I'm not looking at the other aspects, Indian electoral democracy is alive and well, or do you believe with all these arrests, IT notices, an atmosphere has been created, and it's not just me, but global commentary suggesting Indian electoral democracy is under threat? Is that excessive, alarmist?
I think we should be positive and we should be on the watch.
We should be positive, but at the same time, we should be on the watch. On that note, I appreciate all of you having joined me here. This is very special to have 3 election commissioners, 2 of them chief election commissioners who've been part of that process as the big Indian election festival is set to begin. That was the political rumble.